Today, you are going to build a MCP. You may have no idea what an MCP is, MCP server, MCP connector. You may have no idea what it is that you're looking at here, all this stuff, this API documentation, but you're going to use it to build a MCP connector. Now, we already talked about this. MCPs are connectors, those USB cables that you plug into other tools, and they use something called an API to communicate. If you're not familiar with what an API is, that is something that you're looking at right here. And just think of it like a series of web addresses. So, for example, here it says, like instantly.ai or hubspot.com or close.com. Then what they also have is, for example, instantly.ai/API/find emails. That is another web address, but you need to send a little bit of code to that web address and you get code back with, for example, an email address, and then you can use that in your application or in any other tool that is able to interpret and process that code. That is the idea. It is, I promise you, it is very simple once you get the hang of it. The idea is that that's not true, that almost every software company has API documentation available. They have an API where they allow you to generate an API key, so a password in your dashboard. You grab that password, that API key, then you go to the API and then you can access it. That's the idea. And then you can use their tools, their data, everything. You can use it somewhere else. A good example is, for example, Zapier, that you've probably heard of Zapier, or all the automation tools. Basically, all they do is they take your data, they send it through the API to, for example, HubSpot. You can say whenever there's a new opt-in for my email newsletter, I also want them to go into my CRM, that type of thing. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take these API docs and we're going to build something in Claude. Now, the reason we're going to do that is because not every tool that you may be using has a MCP server, MCP connector available natively, or instantly doesn't even have it natively, as in it's available in the App Store under connectors. So if you go here under connectors, if it's not available here, then there's no official connector. Then you can ask that company, hey, do you have an MCP server? Can I access your MCP? They may give you a link, and you can use that. If you did get that link and you want to connect it, then the next videos for that, how to connect the MCP service. But we're going to build one ourselves. That's the idea, because sometimes there's no MCP available and we still want to use that tool, use their data or services or actions or what have you, want to use that within Claude. So that's what we're going to do today. All you have to do is to copy and paste. That's everything. So it is really straightforward. And that is just the beauty of Claude as well, and the state of the internet these days. So what you're going to do here, for example, instantly, they have a lot of things going on. I'm not going to copy and paste everything, but their MCP doesn't give us access to their data, their super search enrichment, right? But I still want to use that within Claude. I still want to enrich emails, find decision makers, etc. I want to use instantly because I'm paying for it. I have credits. I want to use them. I don't want to start adding an additional subscription. So basically, all I'm going to do is copy and paste everything I'm seeing here into Claude and say, build me a connector for Claude so I can always access all of this data. That's it. I'm not going to bore you with me actually copy and pasting it. Let me just scroll to the top. Let me see. So here's the very first request, and here's that web link that I told you about. So it's instantly.ai/API v2 super search enrichment, etc. That is called an endpoint, and we want to grab all of that. So I'm gonna just expand all just in case. Then I'm going to grab everything, copy it, paste it. And I'll show you the next part. I want to make sure that we grab, just everything that's on the page here. There are scrapers that allow you to do it. If imagine there are like 50 or 100 pages, you don't want to copy and paste everything. Let me know. I'll send you a scraper you can use for that. But for now, I'm just going to scroll all the way down. expand everything. I'm going to copy it, paste it, and then once I'm ready, I'll let you know. Here we go. So I have everything in here. I just dropped in a Google Doc because why not? So here's everything. Then that should be everything that they need to know. So I'm just gonna make sure it knows that example endpoint that has like a full endpoint. Then I'm going to file, download just as txt because it's going to be a bit easier to read and it's going to get rid of any crazy formatting. I'm going to close this, and here we are back in Claude. And then all I'm going to do, and before we do this, you want to make sure you go to capabilities, then example skills, and make sure that MCP builder is turned on. Then we go here again. I'm going to start a new chat, and I'm going to attach that text file. Here we go. I'm going to type, which is something you haven't seen me do much, but there's a time and place for everything. So use your MCP skill to turn this instantly super search function into a MCP connector called. There we go. That's everything. Congratulations. You've built an MCP. You may still have no idea what it stands for, what it does, but that's everything it takes. So if my point here is not to make you jump through technical hoops or what have you, or my point is A, to show you that just how cool this is, and B, just to make you aware of the fact that even if you have a bunch of tools that aren't natively integrated or don't have an MCP, you still have the option to actually connect them to Claude and going forward just use them within your sales brain. One quick thing that I did forget is I didn't give him an API key. He's probably going to ask for that later. If not, I'll just tell, hey, listen, by the way, this is my API key. We use that to connect, for example. If it doesn't ask for that, that is obviously important to have the API key in there. Claude's going to build the MCP server for you, and it's doing all the heavy lifting, and there's nothing else for us to do. And now hopefully you're equipped with another skill, pun intended, sort of, where now okay, regardless of the tool I'm using, if they have an API, I can use them within Claude and just take the 5-10 minutes that it takes to set this up. Take that time, because then going forward, you can just use that tool, access it within your sales brain, within Claude, and it's going to make your life a whole lot easier. I'm going to let this finish just so you can see the final result. We'll start it, and then hopefully you're ready to start building your own MCP connectors. All right, here we go. So that took a little bit longer, and sometimes Claude is trying to get a little bit cute, and it doesn't know its own powers, I guess. So it built the MCP, then says, listen, here's this stuff, and you gotta run the server and do this and install all these things. But you can just tell it, listen, do all of that for me. My API key is, I dropped something random in there. My API key is whatever your API key is. Then it goes through that, and it says, there you go. You're going to restart, and it's good to go. So don't always take Claude's word, whenever it says something, hey, you got to do this or that technical thing, tell it, you know what, you do it for me. It did that, and now here under connectors, we have the instantly supersearch connector available. I can just say, use the instantly supersearch connector to enrich this, or better yet, I can just build a skill saying, okay, whenever I say enrich, then use instantly supersearch to do this, to do that, because by now you know how to build skills. So you can just say, okay, these are my common enrichment use cases. Whenever I drop a CSV in here, take it, get all the people out, find their emails using instantly enrich or whichever MCP you've built, and then give me the CSV back with everything in it, for example. So the moment it's in Claude, you can then start adding it to skills as well, the exact same way that we've done with all the other skills that we've built. It works the exact same way. That is the beauty of Claude and how flexible it is. So that's that. Now you can build your own MCP service.